Hello, and welcome to Ouachita Ministries Incorporated. My name is Handel Smith, and I'm the media production coordinator here. By the way, I want to thank you, first of all, for joining the media production crew. This is a volunteer position, and my hope is that as we train and learn a little bit more about audio, that you'll be able to feel confident using the soundboard and all the equipment behind me right now. So, without further ado, let's get to it. You might be wondering a little bit about this board and how it actually functions. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but let me tell you first about the position of the soundboard operator. The audio guy, or the soundboard operator, is the ears of the program. It's really important for the audio person to be able to hear clearly the sounds that are coming in. Now, we do have some headphones here that would actually be very useful for the audio soundboard operator to use. So putting these on like this would actually create a wonderful environment for the soundboard operator to be able to hear all the different sounds that are coming into the program. There is a danger, however, of wearing these the entire time. There's a lot of ambient sound that happens in the room that is lost when trying to isolate or focus on hearing one particular sound. Sometimes things like feedback might not register in the headphones, but might be heard in the room itself. So when analyzing the sound and the sound properties in the room, the headphones are good, but if the sound person is wearing these, they could actually be isolated from reality a little bit. It's good to use those sparingly. What some operators will do is only listen to one ear, so they could hear the ambient sound as well as the one channel that they may be soloing. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what soloing is later. Also, one of the things that we want to talk about is feedback. Feedback is a real big problem right here in the auditorium. Feedback is where you have a speaker. Let's pretend that this is a really large speaker and it has a lot of volume coming out of it, and it's connected to the system through this cable. The sound is going out, and then let's say we have this, which is a microphone. The microphone receives the sound coming out of here goes into the microphone plus my own voice. So I speak into it, and the sound goes through the system. Well, this is wireless, but let's say it goes through a wire into the board over here, which amplifies it and takes it into this board, which also amplifies it and processes it, and then sends it back out through the thing down there, which also amplifies it, and then sends it out to the big speakers on the wall, or let's just say that this was that big speaker on the wall, and it comes trumpeting out of here as loud as it can be, so that everyone in the whole room and the whole auditorium can hear it, maybe even down the street, who knows. And that we take this microphone, put it right next to it, and what happens is the sound goes back into it, lickety-split, at the speed of lightning, and the electrical circuits get amplified again and comes back out of here even louder, and then goes back into here. Now this is all happening in the blink of an eye or less. Pretty soon you get this very loud sound coming out of the speaker at a certain frequency, and that can actually break microphones and speakers and the system if it is allowed to continue to its breaking point. It's basically like taking a glass and whistling or singing into that glass, and at the resonance frequency of the glass begins to shake. And it shakes so violently that the whole glass will shatter. So that is the shattering frequency of speaker and mic. That's why we want to avoid feedback, the sound going through the loop. So in order to do that, one thing you can do is actually very easily take the microphone, move it away from the speaker, and then you have less chance of there being feedback. Another thing you can do is simply turn the microphone away from the speaker. Turn it away, move it away. That will help to prevent this kind of feedback. Sometimes what happens though, let's say you have an object here, like my jacket, that is very reflective. Let's say it's reflective, not absorbing sound. And then if the speaker is turned toward this reflective material, And the microphone, even if it's behind the speaker, if it's turned also toward that reflective material, the sound coming out of the speakers, it makes waves, a little like water waves or a little like the beams of light, bounces off of here and radiates out, and it will actually be picked up by the microphone if they're both pointed at the same thing at an angle of attack where the sound will actually reflect well. So if you look at the sound, the angle of the sound coming out of here, bouncing off of here, if you're good at geometry, you can figure out, pretty quick that sound is going to be picked up by the microphone. Have you ever walked by a wall and found that there's a sound around the corner and it bounces off of the wall and you hear it better in certain areas than others? You go, well, that's interesting. I'm hearing something from around the corner bouncing off this wall. That's very strange. Or you're in an oval room and there's one focal point and one other focal point. Somebody whispers on one side of the room and you're on the other side of the room and you hear what they're whispering and they're so far away and you go, wow, how is that even possible? Well, it is because of this, that reflectivity. Sound moves in waves, and sound can be reflected off of things. Certain materials, like this object right here, actually will absorb sound and suck the sound into it. One of the reasons why we even have these here is pop, 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 tss, tss, tss. When you have the pops and the tss and t sounds, this cover will actually reduce a lot of that popping sound, the popping and the plosives. So we talked a little bit about how to reduce the feedback, and we talked a little bit about the different angles that sound can be reflected off of, and we also talked about why there are these funny little covers on the microphones, so that they will actually absorb the plosives and so on. Moving on, looking at the microphone since we're holding it, there are 4 microphones that are wireless that we have. We may have some other ones, but they are not available for use right now. These mics, you switch them on and you can look at them. You will see that it has a little battery thing in it. The battery should be 2 bars or more. That would actually be very good. 3 bars is a maximum on here. 1 bar means it's probably going to die before the end of the program. It may last half an hour or more. When not in use, people need to shut off the microphones. Any one person is done speaking, they need to be instructed to turn it off in between people. We don't have a lot of battery power, and we want to preserve the batteries that we do have. When you look on the inside here, you'll see that there's a 9-volt battery in this wireless microphone. This 9-volt battery that's here is a rechargeable 9-volt battery. We have a charger on the side, and after you notice that the batteries are low in these microphones, part of your duty is to unscrew this, take that battery, put it on the charger, and then go ahead and replace it with another battery. This is if it has 0 power, like it's run completely out of power. Just take it out, charge it, get another battery, put it in, close it up. Close it. Careful not to cross thread it. When you feel some tension, just leave it there. That's good. Just so it doesn't unscrew itself. 2 fingers is fine, maybe 3 fingers. And voila, we're done. Next, what we're gonna do, we're gonna learn a little bit more about the board. So let's turn around and learn some more about this soundboard. Here's the soundboard. Right here we have the sliders. These are what we call sliders. They go up and down. They slide forward and backward. Right here we have the mute button. We have solo button. We have selection, so we can select a track. This selection changes what we see in the display. So whatever channel I choose, you can see that the display changes. So we have 1 track selected there. Just under that, of course, is a solo button. What is the solo useful for? Well, the solo button is actually useful for hearing 1 track in particular if we use our headphones. So when you want to use your headphones, you can listen to that particular track of audio coming through. The way the board works in general is you have these audio tracks right here. Let me just show you the sound flow. So here's my microphone. I'm going to speak into my microphone. This is a blue one, and the sound will come in through this track right here, which is track 3. Okay, the one with the blue mic. Okay, so you have a blue microphone, is going to come in through the blue track, track number 3. That slider is up to 0. 0 is considered normal, just so you know. We're going to play some sound into this. That select button does not need to be on for the sound to be registered in it. When I begin to speak into the microphone, you will see that this channel will actually start to go up and down. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, even though the sound is not playing in the building, I'm still getting sound into this channel. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Why am I not getting any sound in this building? I'm actually receiving sound into the board, but we need to get sound to a different part of this, and I'll show you in just a moment. This is the first thing we actually need to turn on. These are called the power amplifiers that amplify the speakers. The speakers are actually plugged into these. Here we have step 1 for audio. The first step is to push that button to turn stuff on. Okay, this will turn on the big bass speakers. The second thing you need to do, the second step, is push the next button. This turns on the speakers that are in front of or beside the lights on the ceiling. So I push this button and those speakers go on. Next, we move higher. Up here, we have another little button here. This switch is step 3. If we turn this switch on, it will turn on the power for this entire setup. These are the microphones. These are the wireless microphones that turn on. These are the different wireless mics. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we also have the wireless mics when the pastor needs to speak. This is the one he uses over here. And we have a secondary one just in case. Those feed into these right here, which actually says lapel mic. That's the one that the pastor uses. And lapel mic 2, that's the one that is the spare microphone that we use. We also have these 4 microphones, are the ones I just showed you. They're color-coded. The pink one is the red one. They have a black one, we have a blue one, and we have a yellow one. And these, when you turn it on, they need to be up near 0. And that means that you should get good sound from those. Those white cables go out to the mics, and they come here in through this patch bay into these black cables, and the black cables are then connected into the back of this board, and they feed XLR connectors into the back. And then the next thing that you will see are these phantom power and trim tabs. Don't worry about any of these really. They only need to be changed if you're having major problems with the input sound, the very first boost of sound. If you are not getting enough volume here, down with the sliders, let's say you had to adjust the sound here, you push it all the way up and you're not getting enough sound, then it's the time to change your gain up a little bit. So you would turn this up at the same time that you're turning this one down. So you turn this down and turn that up at the same time. And that way it doesn't get too loud when you're doing your program. I'm going to recommend something else. You do have a mute button here, and some people like to use these mute buttons. I would avoid using that greatly because these buttons break down so easily. And in fact, if I tap this mute button, you might notice that it's not pushing on. And unfortunately, these mute buttons have been pushed so much that only if I really press it hard will it actually respond. If you want to have your program fail, one thing to do that you could do is rely on these mute buttons. On this board, you have several numbers all the way across it like this. What do those numbers mean? Guess what? This board is digital, so it has layers. And right there on the side, you have layer status. So you have channels 1 through 24, and that corresponds with all of these channels. You have channel 1 all the way to channel 24. On the upper left of those little black bars. Then right here you have channel 25 through 48. So if I click here, it'll be 25 to 48. Now watch what happens when I click 25 to 48. And I'm going to push channels 1 through 24. So you can see that there are different layers. You're probably not going to use anything on here other than 1 through 24. Just so you know, the bus 124 channels. Bus is basically telling the machine what kind of output you want to send out. So you'll notice that all the bus channels are up. And that's because all of these channels are sending audio out. And you can actually attach where you want the audio to go to. We have two sets of speakers that we're sending the sound out to. By the way, we're also sending the sound out to the back where the switcher is. There is this little curious button right here that I want to inform you of. You must always leave this in the on position. So if for some reason we're not getting sound in the back, I put this little sign here that says, if no sound in control room, check this button first. Sometimes when we're moving equipment back and forth through this window, we actually accidentally push the control room button. If that button is pushed or unpushed, I'm talking about this one right here. If that one is like that, that one thing can end the program pretty much. So please make sure that that is pushed in. Also, this is the volume that goes into the back room. It even has a label here before it came. Best recording volume. Leave it at that. Never touch these, please, for the sake of the program. This is your headphone, and on the silver area here, if you want to turn these headphones down, then just use this level only. You need to understand a little bit about the equalizer. There is an equalizer on this board. There are a number of other features on this board like dynamics and so on. This panel right here, it says encoder. You'll see the encoder mode right here. Okay, right now it's set to EQ and auxiliary. Let me pick a channel that I can adjust. I'll pick piano. I love to play with the piano a little bit. So I'm going to select that. And you'll notice right away that these changed right here. All of these switches changed. You saw the colors changed? I'm going to show you again. Click something else, these two, all of these changed. Okay, now these didn't light up, but that's okay. These did. Why did these change? Is that this is EQ. It says EQ. EQ means equalizer, and AUX means auxiliary. Adjusting the equalizer starts where it says low gain. Right here it says low frequency. Right here it says low Q. These three are all on the same, just the same frequency range. If you understand something about frequencies, you'll probably understand frequency range. Okay, here we have low, medium, low, medium, low, medium, the Q, the frequency, and the gain. Gain is like volume, up and down. It gets louder, gets softer. Frequency is like, if you have a horizontal line, what it does is frequency is how many times per second a wave goes up and down, basically. So over on this side is the high frequency range, over on this side is a low frequency range. So higher pitch, lower pitch, higher volume, lower volume. The Q affects the width, how much of it is adjusted. And we'll see that as we look at this little thing here. So EQ on this channel, on the piano channel, okay, we have this selected. Now I'm going to go up to where it says EQ. I'm going to turn that on. When I hit screen, you're going to see something change here on the screen. So this was channel 12. Up here I have it selected, and I've pushed screen, which is in the EQ section. I have it on, so now I'm over here at the screen. What are we seeing on this screen? Okay, first up here we see this frequency thing. You see that there's a frequency set. You see 100, 1.0K, which is 1,000, and 10K, which is 10,000. You also see a number of different dials. You see there's high G, high middle G, low M, low middle G, and then low G. So you have the high middle, the low middle, and the low. So what does that all mean? These are different frequency adjustments that you can change with 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 refer to these 4. So just 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 dials on there will adjust the higher range of the graph over here. These 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, will adjust this middle high range over here. This 1, 2, 3, 4 will adjust this low middle here, and this 1, 2, 3, 4 will adjust the low frequency over here. Okay, I'm changing the type of adjustment I want to make. I can actually make a shelf, make a peak. I'm going to use the peak. So now I'm going to move over to the next slider. I was adjusting this one, I'm moving this one now. And as I turn this, you'll notice that it's turning on the screen also at the same time. Okay, so when I adjust this, you're not really seeing much change. Let me change something that's actually going to make a difference. I'll change the first one over here. and then you see a peak, right? Up and down on here, changes up and down on there. And I adjust this one, and it changes its position. I adjust this one, it changes its width. You see what I was saying before? This is the Q, this is the frequency, and this is the gain. And this will affect how the program sounds as people are singing or speaking or whatever. And understanding how to make the sound good is a whole science unto itself. So I'm not going to go into this too much, but just suffices to say that is how you EQ. If you don't understand about EQ, it's best to leave it be. Your changes will not be saved if you decide you do want to play with it. It will affect the program. Anyway, if you did want to adjust the EQ on the piano, you can adjust these things, and it would do pretty much the same thing that we were talking about before. As I turn this thing right here, you see how the lights change on there? So that means you don't even have to look at it, but you can see that things are being adjusted. Now I'm going to adjust the sound using this auxiliary feature. Test, 1, 2, 1, 2. You should hear a little bit of an echo when I turn it up like this. Test, test, test. Okay, that was exaggerated. Test, test, test. I'm going to turn it down a little more. Test, test. And turn it down some more. Test. Can we turn it all the way off and it'll be pretty dry. Test, test. All right. So this is usually what we leave it at for the room. Test. It leaves a little bit of a room sound, but it adds to it slightly. So it's helpful when people are singing or whatever. If someone's really singing a beautiful song, you might want to add just a little bit more. Don't go all the way to the top. Don't go all the way to the middle, but you can add some like that. If you go all the way to the middle, it's going to echo, so just go slightly back, and you can see that test. It still has an echo. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Like that. Okay, so that's good audio for singing. Just make sure you bring it back down when it's time to talk. So if they talk between their songs, you're going to have to adjust that constantly. If you don't want to have to adjust it, leave it alone. Some of the things that we've discovered along the way about this is we've discovered a little bit about EQ, discovered about the sliders. Sliders need to be up to 0. I know it's very strange. Between 0 and 10 is okay. If you go up to 10, just know that it's going to be loud and it might distort. If it distorts, if the sound distorts, it's because the volume level has gone too high. If the volume goes too high, let me give you an example of what that sounds like. You're going to see these right here. They're going to peak out all the way up here at red. So that is overload. It's overloading the system, and the system does not like that. Let me give you another example. There's an overload light right here. If I peak again, you'll see that it went red. That's bad. Let's see right here, this is channel 3. How do I know it's channel 3? I look here and I see, channel 3. What I'm gonna do is, if I'm too loud, if the sound coming in is too loud right there, what I'm gonna do is turn that down. Turn that down a little bit, and all of a sudden the volume gets lower, and now it's not going to peak. See? It only went up to -6. All right, that's how you deal with loud sounds coming in your mics, so you don't overload the system. Another thing you might notice is if somebody is creating feedback, you may not be able to move the microphone away or to flag them and say, please stand behind the speakers. Instead, what you can do is you can simply bring the audio down like this, and that sounds like woo or woo actually goes away. The next best thing is to look and see if you're hearing a ringing sound. You may look around and see if there are any other mics that are open. If your primary mic is this one and you only need sound from that one person, you might consider turning the sound down over here, or over here, or over here, so that it isolates the sound coming from that one channel. And there you only have one microphone open, and it helps to eliminate the background noises, the whistles, and the ambient sounds, and it pretty much gives everybody a very good listening experience throughout the entire place. Another thing you want to consider as the audio sound engineer or the soundboard operator is artwork. You may notice that we have several microphones out here. There's one there, there's one mic there, there's another mic by the piano, there's another mic over there sitting on the side of the piano. There is another mic over there in the corner that's not plugged in. There's another mic here, that's one people talk into. There's another mic right there that's being used for the guitarists when they sit down to play, they use that mic. There's no mic on the podium, but that's where the wireless mic goes, the lapel mic. And there are two mics over there where the orchestra is going to be. Now, usually you want to get the numbers off of these mics. We're going to do it from here. We can see that that is 14, and that one is 16. And this other mic, that one is 20. This other one is labeled, can't see the label. Can't see the label on that one. I know that my piano is 12, even though I can't see it from here, I know it's 12. And that one can't exactly make out the number. All right, but you need to actually be able to identify your microphones and make a little map. Yeah, that one's 20, right? Okay. So you don't need to be an artist, you don't need to be a CG expert or anything, but what we're talking about is making little maps like this. Before you start your job as audio person, when you walk in, other than turning on everything and making sure it's working, is you're going to need to go in and figure out where the mics are situated. So make a makeshift line drawing of the stage, put little circles where the microphones are and some kind of indicator as to what you're labeling, and just put the numbers in there so you know, or the next person who comes after you knows, this is where the mics are placed. Here's another example, a little stage. You can see that there's a piano on the stage. It's denoted by the thing that looks like a P for piano, I guess. Then you have those mics that are just sitting there on the side, 14, 16, there's 20, there's 12, there's 15, there's 22, there's 18. And of course we also have some mics in the audience. We have those choir mics on the side. That one's over there is 11, and that one over there is 13. They're by the cameras. Here's another one. This one's upside down. This is before we made the change, I think. But yeah, see some microphones there. You have 18 and 22 and 12. That's just an example of how to make just a quick map, like really, really fast. So this kind of thing is normal for the audio person. Just make a quickie map very fast. And so you have an idea of where your equipment is. And that way we don't have to waste labels, making labels constantly. To say, oh, it's on the left side, right side. That takes so much time making these labels. It's just better to be like, one page, numbers, 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 quick line drawing, and then you know that's where my stuff is. That's what I need to turn on and turn off. And so you can tell where and how to get your ambient sound. Where's your ambient sound coming from? Which mics are you going to turn on so that you can hear the audience? You're going to turn on 11 and 13, which is what we want to do to get ambient audience sound from around here. We also want to turn on 20 and 18 so we get ambient audience sound, because people want to know that the audience is singing. They really like hearing the audience sing, so we're going to turn those on. Over here we have 14 and 16. That's for the orchestra. We like hearing the orchestra. We want to have those ambient on Friday night vespers when people are singing. It's so beautiful. Also 12. We want to turn 12 on for the piano. And when the guitar is playing, we want to have number 22 on. And of course, if a person's singing or playing violin by 15, we want to have that on too. For ambience, you're probably going to go down to about -10 or maybe -5. If the people who are singing up front are not so clear on the lyrics of the song and they're kind of mumbling through it, you might want to just go ahead and bring them down a little bit, let them blend into the ambient sound so that it sounds more like a choir rather than having them be the only voice. Yeah, we want the angels to sing with us, so We'll just bring them down a little bit and make that sound blend in really nicely. So that's more or less the audio board, and that's how to use it for the most part. You probably have a bunch of questions. Some of the questions I've been asked in the past is, what are all the things on there? We went through these 4. We know what those are. We know this is the extra lapel mic. This extra lapel mic, mic 2, is actually found over here. This is a lapel mic container for the regular lapel mic. It goes inside of here. That's the one that we post on the Pastor. Make sure that you push and hold down this button to turn it on. If you push it once, nothing happens. If you push and hold, it turns on. We'll have to show you a little bit more about actually how to put this on, and it would be good if you knew how to turn it on and how to put it on them. So it does have a clip. This clip will actually clip onto their belt. If it's a lady, if she has a skirt, you can go ahead and clip it on her elastic skirt, no problem. If they are wearing a dress, you can clip this onto the area where their neck is. Have them lift up their hair in the back if they have a lot of hair, and just clip this onto the back of their dress near the top. So they throw their hair over it if they have long hair, and that will actually help to cover it when they're up front. Make sure the antenna is not sticking up outside of their hair. Tuck everything inside the skirt, the dress, and then make sure that this thing goes over their ears. This is gonna actually clip on their ears this way. The microphone is at the tip of this thing, and that needs to be beside their cheek. Up here, just above lapel mic, is the other lapel mic. This one does not have a clip on the back, so we're not gonna be using this one to clip on anybody. Basically, this is a spare because if we have another speaker who insists on speaking, that's actually really useful to have this. One just tosses it in their pocket, and if they don't have a pocket, then they use the other one. Okay? It works on a different frequency, so it will not conflict with the other microphone. When you are putting the first microphone on people, okay, so let's say that you've got this microphone here and you're planning on attaching it to somebody. Have them remove their jacket, take this part, put it on their head. You may have to adjust this thing. It actually goes a little bit longer. You can actually extend it. I'm going to extend it a little bit because I think my head's pretty large. We put it on there, and it just sits back here like this. Hooks over the ears like so. Okay, hooks over this ear like so. And this mouthpiece can come, I think, maximum about right here. Right about here is where it needs to stop. And then this cable, after they've taken off their coat, it's gonna go around back and just pretty much just drop all the way down to where their belt was. Here's their belt, clip it on. When it's on their belt, you're gonna have all this cable hanging down. So what I usually do is I just bunch it up a little bit and I tuck it into their belt also. This is clipped on their belt, and then this extra is also tucked in their belt, between their pants and their belt. And it usually holds the entire program. And then what you have is a little bit of tightness in there and where it's hooked onto their head. It's so tight at this point that if they turn their head the wrong way, it's actually gonna pull off of here where the clamp is. And it's gonna pull the entire microphone off, and it disconnects it. And you have this microphone hanging off their face like that. And that's not good either. So what you want to do is let a little bit out. Just pull a little bit extra cord out, about a finger's length, half a finger's length. Put your hand on their shoulder and have them move their head around, up and down like this. That is really helpful. It prevents a lot of problems. And if they can't move their head back and forth without it snagging, pull a little bit more of the cable up out of their jacket. If they are wearing a coat, you want to take that microphone and make sure that the coat is covering the cable. We want to hide the cable as much as possible. And remember, once again, you push the button one time to turn on, hold it down, right? You push it again to hold it down to turn off. Very simple. There are a bunch of other buttons down here. Ignore them. Only that one button is at the top is the one that you use on this thing. And if for some reason the battery looks like it's going low, swap out the batteries. Charge them on there. We keep our charged batteries in these plastic things up here. Okay? We have charged batteries in this thing. If you do have any charged batteries, make sure they go in here. Some of these things have different kind of batteries in it. Just make sure they're the ones that say rechargeable. Anything that's alkaline, not rechargeable. You might have noticed that I've got this green thing back here with all these little lights on it. we're going to take a look at that. I'm going to show you what it means. Over here we have a rack. It's got a number of different things in it. Here you have a Shure, UL whatnot, and ULX P4. We have 4 of those. We also have the Audio Technica audio receivers, and they actually correspond to these Audio Technica transmitters. The transmitters are the ones that the microphone is plugged into. You may notice that there's a connector here on this microphone. There is a way to remove this. You actually simply pull it straight up and it comes off. Now, the thing is, we don't like doing that. Why don't we like doing that? For one thing, people often don't get it fully connected when they put it back on. We don't like to disconnect this thing. Please, if you can, leave it connected. You may notice also right here, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and I want you to see what happens when I do turn it on. I'm turning it on, and watch what happens. Not only did it go on here, but you can also see right there, battery life, RF receiving frequency, 4 bars of battery on here. And you can see what frequency it's on. All that information comes. Now, if I turn it off, watch what happens. The alert light goes on over here, and all these little bars went away. So that's what happens when it's disconnected from this. That is actually good news, that you can tell how much battery power you still have in the belt pack, because it's incredibly useful to know that when you have a pastor who's been talking for a while and they need to finish. You may want to know when the battery is actually going to run out on the pastor. If he's got 2 bars left or 1 bar left, you know that the sermon is going to end one way or another. So if I'm speaking, I may have a problem landing the plane. That could be a problem if my mic's about to run out. Okay? So anyway, that's something to be aware of. So that's a little bit about the audio board and the rack in the corner that has the receivers on it. Also, that's a little bit about the transmitters, the lapel mics that send out the audio. Let's talk some more about the different kind of mics you'll find out there and kind of what they're for. I'm not going to get too technical about this because we just basically just want to get you familiar with all this equipment so that you know kind of how to mic things. Yes, this is the audio person's job, actually miking the different instruments, not only working the soundboard, but understanding how sound works and understanding a little bit more about which instruments are going to need what microphones to get them to work right. Okay, so let's go take a look. Microphones. They are the things that should bring the sound into the mix, and for the most part, you'll notice that we actually use a lot of different microphones on our sets. I'm just going to kind of run through very quickly what these are. This one over here is the Shure. It kind of has a pickup pattern that looks a little more like this. This is the Audio Technica. The pickup pattern is on this side and on this side. If I were to turn this toward you, it's bidirectional. If you take this microphone and point it at somebody, you're not going to get as much sound. This one is good for having 2 instruments that are sitting next to each other, one over here and one over here. Or maybe getting the sound from this side and getting the reflection of the sound from that side. This is, I think this side is more sensitive. The front is more sensitive than the back side. So the microphone is actually pointed in this direction. So if a person wants to talk into this mic, they're going to want to stand here and talk into it. It would be good if this thing had a plosive device to prevent the sound from making it resonate in the wrong way. This one has a windscreen, this one has a windscreen. The Shure will actually pick up from the front, but it also picks up from the sides. On the side of this microphone, it has some settings here. It says -15 decibels, 0 decibels, and -25 decibels. That will allow you allow a person, if they really want to fine-tune its pickup, they can adjust for the amount of phantom power that we're putting in the board. Also, if you do have phantom power coming in, or you want to have the mic boosted so that you can actually grab more sound, you can set it to 0. Or if you think that you're getting too much sound and you have a lot of power going to it, you can move it down to -25 decibels. This can also adjust the EQ as kind of like a pre-EQ. It can have a high pass filter on it, which will allow the higher frequency sounds to register more clearly than the bass, so it has more of a tinny sound. That might actually help if you're picking up violins and things like that, or piccolo or some high frequency instruments. You've also got all pass, so it has a flat line on there. It will allow for regular EQ, just normal to go through. This is what we call a shotgun mic. This is by Sennheiser. It tends to have a longer pickup pattern, which is more like this. So whatever you point it at, it tends to get more sound from that direction. It has fins on the side, brings in the audio, but it also picks up sound this way. And of course, it funnels down to the receiver in the backside. Most of these mics, please understand, the diaphragms on them are very sensitive. If somebody wants to test a mic, and you can actually tell them this before the program starts. You say, if you need to test a mic, please just pop, 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 or that's how you test mics. It's important for people to understand that because so many mics get destroyed. This one is pretty much the workhorse. You'll see this in a lot of newscasts and things. They'll just take this and be able to kind of throw it around a little bit. This mic can take a bit more punishment, the big round one, but still it has kind of a heart-shaped pickup pattern. These dynamic mics are actually pretty useful. They're very forgiving as far as sound is concerned, but they're not as sensitive as the ones that you might want to use for the fine instruments. So be aware of that. That's about all we're going to say about mics for now. Keep track of the numbers on these. Just know that most of these are labeled with a number. You want to make your little map, write down the numbers that are on these, and then make sure that you have those numbers written down so that you and the next person that comes in after you can actually find the sliders for these particular mics. And while I'm here, I'm just going to let you know, if you want to move the mic up or down, just go ahead and loosen it here first, and then you can go ahead and drop that mic down. That's the best way to do it. A lot of people like to just yank it up or bend it to the side, and what happens when that is done is the mic tends to lose its ability to have friction at that one point. So that joint begins to sag. After a while, that mic will start to fall, which actually happened in one of our programs. Unfortunately, one of our musicians was playing this beautiful song on this violin, and we were just living in the music. And it just so happened that one of our sound guys, he took one of our stands and he had to put a mic over there. And when he put it there, he tightened it down, and it was as far out as it could go, aiming down above the musicians, where the musician was going to go. So he tightened it, thought it was great. It would have been great, except that particular stand, somebody had moved it once and then moved it again and moved it again, but they forgot to unscrew it. And so he had to really tighten that thing down. He thought it was pretty tight. So as he left, there's that musician playing, and we're in the music, and suddenly that thing starts to dip and come right down on him as he's playing. And he finally notices it, and this is on camera, and he's like, what's going on? The mic is like attacking him, right? Coming down on him. He's like, what? We had to quickly shift the camera to his wife while we fixed the microphone. It was very embarrassing for him, and it was embarrassing for the school and the media department and everybody. That just goes to show that we need to treat the equipment with care and to tighten down the stands and loosen them before moving them and then retighten them. We've gone over the soundboard, we've gone over the microphones, we've gone over a lot of the different equipment that we have. We've gone over sound and how it functions a little bit. And so now, as you run the soundboard, I hope that what we've been discussing is actually very helpful for you and will help sweeten your programs. At the end of the audio program, when you're finished running the board, there is a way to actually shut down the board. Normally, there's a sequence that you would run through to shut down the board. Those two buttons don't work anymore on the board. So what we're going to do is we're simply just going to shut off the power. Now, the way to do that is like this. Start from the very bottom and work your way back up. In the same sequence that you started up the soundboard, the same sequence you used to turn it off. That is the sequence for turning off the soundboard when you're done. Please also turn off the house lights. Probably want to wait till everyone's gone first before you do that. But another thing that the audio soundboard operator does is to close the shutter doors. There is a switch on the wall behind the audio soundboard operator's desk. One is the light. You can turn that off. It also has a dimmer beside it. And the second one is the shutter door. So there's a little switch that goes up and down. And that shutter will actually shut the doors that are right in front of you. There's no glass there, so make sure that that is completely clear. Sometimes if you can't see it, there might be something sitting there in the corner, and when that door comes down, it's going to come down hard and it's going to pretty much crush whatever's there. The other thing, there are two other switches, by the way, underneath the desk to the right of the soundboard. So let's say if you're sitting at the soundboard, you reach over to the right, and then down under the desk, your two fingers will feel two switches, one for the left projector screen and one for the right projector screen. If you pull them toward you, it should pull the screens down. And if you push them away from you, it will push the screens up. There are also a couple of remote controls over in the audio booth. And when you go into the audio booth, you can use the red button on here to turn on the projectors. You could stand right at the audio booth, point at one, just push the button, and it should go on. You should hear a beep. And then stretch your arm out to the other one and put as far as you can right near the window and push, and you should hear a beep. One beep, one beep. When you're turning them off, you're going to have to push the button once. You'll see something, a little box on the screen. Push it again, and a little box will disappear, and it will turn off. About 3 to 5 seconds later, you're going to hear two beeps. Beep, beep. That means it's turned off. Do the same thing with the other one. I'm going to expect the soundboard operator to turn on the projectors if necessary. Sometimes the program manager that will tell the audio person to turn it on, they might be just outside the window, and they might say, hey, could you turn on the projectors? Then you'd be like, oh, okay, I know what to do. Take the thing, beep, beep, okay, they're on. Sometimes also we'll have another camera running, like camera 4. Sometimes that camera will be a roaming camera. It will be on a tripod with wheels and rolling around. If it's rolling around, normally we don't have it plugged into power, we just have a battery pack. So if we have a battery and we're plugging the battery into the camera, let me demonstrate for you so you can see a little easier. Here's a battery. It actually says Cam 4 on here. Cam 4, da-da-da. So this camera battery has these little things right here. Those metal things fit into the camera. Here is where they fit, right on this side. Okay, so metal parts, they go in here, push it in, and then, okay, you push it that way. It's not coming out. It's stuck in there, it's gonna stay in there. So your camera looks like this with a big battery pack on the back. Now, how do you get the thing off? If you have to take this thing off, you can see that there's a little button right here. Push that button in and take your thumb and push on the battery that way. Then you can actually pull the battery out. Recap, battery in, click, won't come out. You can shake it, you can do whatever, it won't come out. Then you go, you find this little button, push it on one side, one finger, pull it over with the other finger, and then separate, da-da-da. Next, chargers. Hey, battery, charger. Take the charger, take the battery. Here's where it plugs in. Put it there, and then snap it in place. And now it's locked in, it's not gonna move. It looks like that when it sits on the desk. This charger is actually set in DC mode. That's gonna send electricity to the camera. And then we want to actually switch it over to charge mode so that we charge the battery. Click. I'm switching it over, and now it's going to start charging the battery. Now on the battery itself, you can check it by pushing this button. So we're going to let this thing sit and charge for a while perhaps. There we go. I hope that what we've been discussing is actually very helpful for you and will help sweeten your programs. Go you forward and do your best in all that you put your hand to. May God bless you and keep you as you do this work. God be with you.